Let me tell you something that is going to make you deeply uncomfortable, and I think that discomfort is one of the most valuable things you can feel when you are actually trying to understand the universe. The picture you carry in your head right now, the one with the giant silver ships descending through the clouds, the one with the noble alien ambassador stepping down a ramp and extending some peculiar appendage toward a crowd of breathless human diplomats, the one where we all sit down together and compare notes on mathematics and philosophy and trade music files across a universal translator, that picture is not science. That picture is a mirror. It is humanity staring into the cosmos and seeing its own face projected back onto the dark, and it tells you almost nothing about what first contact with a genuinely alien intelligence would actually be like. It tells you everything about the inside of a human skull, which is an interesting place, but it is not the universe. The first and most important thing a physicist has to do when approaching any new problem is to ruthlessly throw out his own assumptions and look at the raw structure of the situation. So let us do that. Let us actually look at what the cosmos is made of and what we are made of, and let us be completely honest about the gap between those two things. Here is an analogy I want you to hold very carefully in your mind. Imagine a single ant, a little worker ant wandering across a smooth white floor. It has wandered, through some combination of curious chemistry and bad navigational luck, directly into the middle of a massive semiconductor manufacturing cleanroom. All around it, enormous robotic arms are sliding back and forth on precision rails, moving with absolute mechanical patience over giant silicon wafers thinner than a human hair. The room hums. Deep electrical transformers vibrate the floor at frequencies the ant can feel through its 6 feet but cannot assign any meaning to. Thick bundles of fiber optic cable pulse with encoded light carrying instructions so precise and layered that a human engineer would need years of graduate study just to begin reading them. The air is filtered to a standard of cleanliness that makes a hospital operating room look like a muddy field. Now here is the critical question. Does the ant understand what is happening? Does the ant comprehend that the robotic arm, passing 2 centimeters over its head, is depositing a layer of material exactly 17 atoms thick onto a surface that will eventually become the processor running the navigation system of an adamant aircraft that carries 300 people at altitude? Does the ant have any neurological framework, any cognitive architecture whatsoever, that allows it to perceive the distinction between a line of code and a line of thermal noise in the machine's electrical signature? The answer is no, and the answer is not because the ant is stupid in any pejorative sense. The ant is a remarkable biological machine. It is extraordinarily good at chemistry and structural engineering and collective organization at its own scale. The answer is no, because the entire physical and informational reality of the cleanroom operates at a level of abstraction and energy complexity that simply has no connection to anything the ant's sensory and cognitive hardware was built to process. The factory does not hate the ant. The factory does not love the ant. The factory does not notice the ant. The factory simply operates according to its own complete and internally consistent physics, and the ant is irrelevant to that physics in the most absolute and non-judgmental sense of the word irrelevant. That is the honest picture of what it means for two civilizations separated by millions of years of independent technological evolution to share the same patch of space-time. Not war, not diplomacy, not friendship. Irrelevance, born from pure structural incompatibility. Now I want to build this picture out carefully using the actual physics, because the physics here is not some abstract philosophical point. It is hard, cold, measurable reality, and it is far more interesting than the movie version. The first truth is about what intelligence actually is and what perception is actually made of. A human being evolved over hundreds of millions of years in a very specific physical environment, warm, oxygenated, bathed in electromagnetic radiation between roughly 400 and 700 nanometers in wavelength, which we call visible light. We have chemical sensors tuned to molecules that appear in our specific biological chemistry. We communicate through pressure waves in nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, which we call sound. Our brains are fundamentally pattern recognition engines built to find meaning in the signals our particular sensory hardware delivers. Every single aspect of what we call intelligence, language, mathematics, music, love, fear, curiosity, all of it sits on top of that specific biological foundation. Change the foundation, and you change everything that grows from it. an organism that evolved around a different star under different radiation conditions, with different atmospheric chemistry or no atmosphere at all, with a different evolutionary history driven by different selective pressures over a different timescale, would build its cognitive architecture from entirely different material. And I mean entirely different, not just a different language that we could slowly translate, the way we might decode an ancient human script by finding common symbols for the sun or for counting. I mean different at the level of what constitutes a signal and what constitutes noise. Their communication might operate through modulated magnetic fields threading through rock and metal. It might operate through coherent streams of neutrinos passing straight through the bulk of a planet the way light passes through glass, carrying structured information that we would never think to look for because we have no sensory apparatus that responds to it in any structured way. It might operate through patterns of quantum entanglement distributed across macroscopic systems in a way that our current physics barely has language to describe. The point is that they could be broadcasting continuously, loudly, in all directions, pumping out the equivalent of their entire accumulated scientific and cultural knowledge, and we could sit directly inside that transmission and perceive absolutely nothing but the ordinary thermal background noise of the universe, the same random electromagnetic jiggling we always see everywhere. We would not know we were inside a signal. We would not know we were being surrounded and permeated by meaning, because the physical substrate of that meaning would be invisible to our instruments, the way the fiber optic data streams in that cleanroom are invisible to the ant. The second truth is about time and distance, and the absolute physics of the speed of light. People talk about the possibility of receiving a signal from another civilization, and they imagine it like receiving a phone call, something that arrives in real time, something you can respond to and get a response back from before the conversation gets cold. But the numbers in this universe are not built for that kind of exchange. The nearest star system to us that might conceivably host a complex world is multiple light years away. The galaxy we live in is 100,000 light years across. Most of the interesting real estate in the galaxy is tens of thousands of light years from where we sit. Nothing we know of in physics allows information to travel faster than the speed of light. This is not an engineering limitation waiting for a clever solution. It is a geometric property of space-time itself, the same kind of deep constraint as the fact that you cannot travel north of the North Pole. What this means for contact is brutal and simple. If we receive a signal from a civilization 2,000 light years away, that signal was sent 2,000 years ago. The beings who sent it were alive and presumably curious 2,000 years ago. We do not know if they still exist. We cannot know. We can send a reply and it will arrive in another 2,000 years, and whoever or whatever receives it then, if anything does, will be as distant from the original senders as we are from the construction of the Colosseum in Rome. Any exchange of ideas, any attempt at mutual understanding across these distances does not happen in a conversation. It happens in a series of monologues separated by millennia. One civilization sends out what it knows. Thousands of years pass. Another civilization, perhaps already enormously changed from what it was when it first heard the signal, sends back what it knows. The whole thing unfolds on a timescale that makes the entire history of human civilization look like a single afternoon. To call this a meeting is to use the word in the most tenuous and poetic sense imaginable. The third truth is the one that I find the most physically clarifying and the most genuinely sobering. It is about energy, raw, physical energy, and what it means for two systems to interact when those systems operate at wildly different energy scales. To cross interstellar space in anything like a reasonable time frame, a physical object needs to carry and expend an amount of energy that is almost impossible to put in human terms. We are talking about energy budgets that make our entire planetary civilization look like a single candle flame. Any craft capable of arriving here from another star system would, almost by definition, be an object that manages and manipulates energy at a scale that has no precedent in anything we have ever built or encountered. And here is the physical consequence of that, stated as plainly as I can state it. A system that operates at those energy densities does not interact gently with its environment. It cannot. The physics does not permit it. The way a massive star does not interact gently with the space around it, not because the star is trying to be dramatic, but because its gravitational and radiative output at that scale simply reshapes everything in its vicinity, whether it intends to or not. The arrival of a genuinely interstellar-capable craft near our planet would not be a neutral event. The thermal output alone, the electromagnetic environment, the local manipulation of matter and energy that would be required just to operate normally, all of that would interact with our planet's delicate thermodynamic systems, the way a white-hot industrial forge interacts with a snowflake placed beside it. Not out of malice, not out of indifference. Out of pure physical scale asymmetry, the same reason you cannot park a nuclear power plant next to a soap bubble and expect the soap bubble to survive the ambient heat. Now, here is what I want to leave you with, and I want to be very clear that this is not a depressing conclusion. I find it enormously exciting, and I think if you follow the physics honestly, you will too. The realization that contact, if it ever comes, is more likely to be a cryptic, cold, mathematically alien event than a cinematic handshake does not make the sky less interesting. It makes it more interesting, in the same way that learning how a magic trick actually works does not destroy the wonder but replaces a shallow, borrowed wonder with a deeper, harder-earned one. The universe is not withholding contact from us out of cruelty. It is simply very large, very old, and built from physical laws that do not consult our emotional preferences before operating. The actual challenge of looking for intelligence in the universe is one of the great unsolved problems at the intersection of physics, information theory, and biology. We do not yet know what a signal looks like when it is built by minds that did not evolve in our biosphere. We do not yet know what communication looks like when the sender and receiver share no common evolutionary history. These are open, genuine, testable scientific questions, and the fact that they are hard is not a reason to retreat into comfortable myths. It is a reason to get better instruments, build better theories, and push harder at the edges of what our limited human machinery can perceive. The universe is under no obligation to be simple, and it is under no obligation to make itself legible to beings who have been doing science for only a few hundred years on a small wet rock orbiting an unremarkable star. But we are here, and we are curious, and we are getting smarter at a rate that would have seemed miraculous to our ancestors. And that combination, raw curiosity pushing against hard physical limits, is the most interesting story in the universe that I personally know how to tell.